So MRA makes sure that proper documentation is attached to, proper documentation is attached together so that all the exports when they go to other countries, they are properly accounted for. Again, MRA looks at the issue of information, provides information to exporters. Now, that information could be the area of the tariffs which are required in the destination countries. It would also be in the area of some non-tariff barriers which are required in the exporting countries, the importing countries. In a nutshell, the non-tariff barriers could be something like standards which are expected from exports from other countries. Standards, technical requirements, sanitary and phytosanitary requirements, and the others. So those standards are supposed to be fulfilled by the exporters. So MRA provides that information to the exporters. Apart from that, it provides incentives for the farmers or other players to manufacture for the export industry. Those incentives could come in the form of industrial rebates, whereby they could import raw materials duty-free, or excise rebates.
If we talk about a farmer, one of the challenges is the appropriate technology, all right? Because most of the standards that we have, okay, which are referenced to other international standards, they require certain products to meet certain specifications. And some of those specifications cannot be met unless you've got the appropriate technology. For instance, if we talk about aflatoxins in the groundnuts, okay, if you don't have appropriate drying and processing arrangements for the groundnuts, you end up having the aflatoxin in your groundnuts. We also talk about appropriate, technology with regard to packaging. Because even if your product is well processed, but from the point of production to the market, that product should be in a state in which it will be able to sustain the quality requirements. Now, I suppose that the product is poorly packaged. By the time it gets on the market, maybe it has actually absorbed moisture, okay, rendering it to be substandard. All right, so you're talking about appropriate technology with regard to packaging. We also talk about technology with regard to testing. And that could be with the Malawi Bureau of Standards. Because the farmers out there, they wouldn't know whether their product is conforming or not. It is the conformity assessment laboratories, like in the Malawi Bureau of Standards, that are supposed to have the appropriate equipment or infrastructure that can achieve to actually establish and verify the conformance level of the products. Now, Malawi Bureau of Standards is trying, but we've got our own challenges. One is the equipment that we have. Either it's old, or though new, but it requires some kind of support in our logistics, all right? Then you also talk about trainings for officers. These are some of the impediments.
Unavailability of low-cost value addition and agro-processing machines in the rural areas provides a drawback to promote the concept of value addition to the rural masses. As an organization, we are trying our best to engage farmers to adopt the concept with the little resources and basic household equipment they have.
The Malawi government is establishing institutions that encourage and harness innovations in the country. These include the National Commission for Science and Technology, the recently established Malawi University of Science and Technology, and the Lilongwe University of Agriculture and Natural Resources, which will offer courses on agro-processing. We believe that such institutions will directly support technological innovation in Malawi's manufacturing sector and will achieve value addition.
Well, support to the SMEs is in different forms. As I said, that we're working with the UNDP, but the phasing out of that project gave birth to even a bigger project, what we call the PSD project. That MIBA is also part to the project. And this is a more encompassing project. It's now not only UNDP, but now even the African Development Bank that is involved. Our Ministry of Industry and Trade is the focal point. But this project is looking at a holistic picture. It's not only production, but we're even looking at quality issues. Malawi Bureau Standards will be there to help the targeted groups overcome their quality issues, so that their products can be certified even to sell in regional markets and international markets.
As Standard Bank, we've got a dedicated unit that looks after agribusiness and agri-finance. So what we've done, we've looked at the products that we as a bank have and aligned them to the needs of the agricultural sector. I'll cite a couple of examples. And this also speaks to how we look at the requirements of people in this segment and how we can assist them. And I'll cite a scenario. If, for example, you look at the milk barking groups in Lilongwe that provide milk to Lilongwe Dairy and MDI, collectively or singularly, you find that maybe each one of them doesn't produce adequate capacity, while as collectively, they can then have adequate milk to sell to these producers and in volumes that begin to make sense. Our approach in that case would be to say, okay, the milk barking groups may be located a bit further away from town, and for them to maintain some sort of bargaining power, you want them to have their own equipment in terms of storage. We want them to have their own equipment in terms of transportation of the milk from wherever they're producing it to the people that buy. Our approach there would then be to say, okay, this is the milk you're producing. We look at the people that utilize the milk to make products and say, if you're going to buy from these people, we're willing to invest money in the processes in terms of the storage equipment, transportation equipment, sometimes even the animals themselves. So we give them money to do that. They supply the milk to Lilongwe Dairy or whichever entity it is, so long as these people then pay through us. So as a value chain, you're looking at a scenario where we understand that if we give them the money, they're going to supply the product this way. These people are going to buy, and the money will come to us. We'll take off our bit and pass on the process to them. That's one scenario. Another scenario, I'll give an example of soya growers, where they go through an entity that exports soya. So the entity has got a market. The soya growers are looking for maybe money for inputs, looking for money for seeds. Singularly, they may not be able to come to the bank, but the entity that buys from them says we are committing to buy so much soya at this price, but the farmers don't have the funds for fertilizer and what have you. We then pass on the money to this entity for fertilizer or to buy the fertilizer on behalf of the farmers. They pass on the fertilizer, they assist with extension services to make sure that in terms of the quality of the crop that's produced, it's at the standard that is commensurate with the price that they're willing to buy it at. They buy it, export it, the money comes in. Of course, we as a bank or we as a country are earning forex. We convert that, the farmers pay off the obligations, they remain with whatever is profit.
Climate change and unstable macroeconomic policy environment poses a great risk of agribusiness failure and threaten sustainability. In the case where the environment experiences a social and economic shock, such businesses collapse at once.
We've been participating in a process where we're trying to do weather index insurance. This was initially a project that was funded by World Bank, but it has yet to go full scale. Not all farmers or not all farms can afford or can be irrigated. That is a fact. Now, if you want to be selective, you would want to say, we'll only lend to people that have got farms that are irrigated, because then it takes away the weather side, especially with respect to rainfall. But weather effects are not just rainfall related. Sometimes it could be wind, it could be hailstorms, it could be cold weather, it could be spells, dry spells, it could be heat. Now, in my view, I think weather index insurance is something that should really be looked at seriously, especially not just by the people that are in the insurance industry, but all of industry should be involved.
One sustainable business value proposition is to address such business challenges at relevant points in investment cycle and therefore reduce the risks and costs associated with making investments.
In addition to agriculture diversification, we are also promoting irrigation farming, where at the smallholder level, we are working with our sister department, the Department of Irrigation, but also the Department of Land Resource and conservation to make sure that our farmers handle their crops with the rightful technologies to mitigate for climate change.
The quick diversification of Malawi's economy and accelerating private sector development lies on the need for smallholder farmers who are in majority to focus on various enterprises that offer greater value.
Developing countries like Malawi do offer vast business opportunities for both expanded markets and increased value chain efficiencies.
We have enormous potential in aquaculture farming, fish farming. We can sink a lot of cages in Lake Malawi and produce a lot of tilapia. But not only that, our honey is probably one of the best. It's high time that we also invested heavily in the honey production to produce for the export market. And even our fruits, we do have so many fruits in this country that go to waste. We can go into dried fruits and vegetables, dried mushrooms, and export them.
The focus of His Excellency is to turn this country around, turn the mindset of young people that you can only be talking about minibuses, buses and the like, but we want to talk factories. And factories not in the urban area, factories in the rural setting.
Lack of better business infrastructure in the rural areas, such as warehouses, markets, and good road network, makes the cost of doing business in the rural areas very high, more especially to women and young farmers.
When fully developed, the Shire-Zambezi Waterways project, including the Nsanje port, will reduce the cost of international trade by up to 60%. I therefore appeal to the private sector in Malawi, Zambia, Zimbabwe, Mozambique, and others to embrace and support the opening of the Shire-Zambezi waterways as soon as possible.
Our mission is to support private sector, the business sector, to ensure that we have got vibrant business activities going on in this country. To the extent that is so, our activities gravitate around the vision that His Excellency the President has advocated, that of turning the country from a predominantly importing and consuming country to a predominantly producing country.
Therefore, our challenge is to diversify our economy by increasing the sizes of manufacturing sectors, thereby contribute to the achievement of the government's vision of transforming Malawi from a predominantly importing and consuming nation to a predominantly producing and exporting one.
Farmers Forum for Trade and Social Justice, the farmer's solution to growing crops, adding value and access to market. Farmers Forum, yes, Farmers Forum.